It's dangerous to go alone. Take this.
And welcome to the realm of geekdom. This is nerd breaking news. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss an episode. Today, we are going to cover the news that we heard that Ryan Gosling is joining Star Wars. And in the insert over here, three-time Oscar nominee is negotiations to top line the Star Wars feature project that will be directed by the Deadpool and Wolverine filmmaker Sean Levy. So let's react to that. Let's start with the kid.
Man, that's a lot to take. First of all, Sean Levy should not be doing any directions after Deadpool Wolverine. Deadpool Wolverine was a horrible movie. I don't know why the professor's acting like that. You trashed the film more than the critics. So I don't know why you're acting appalled. And the Oscar goes to the professor right now because I don't know what Razzie Award he's trying to win. What does he mean? Sean Levy. No, Sean Levy. Let's and real quickly before we go to Ryan Gosling, let's look at Sean Levy. Right, Sean Levy has done Cheaper by a Dozen. Nobody remembers that movie. The Pink Panther with Steve Martin. Nobody remembers that movie. Night of the Museum with Ben Stiller. Another one nobody remembers. He did the one part one and part two. Date Night with Steve Carell and the girl from 30 Rock, the girl with the glasses, Tina Fey. The Internship with Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn has been irrelevant since Old School. Let's just be real for a second. Oh, you know what? I'll give him that breakup movie with Jennifer Aniston. That's it. That's the last time we saw Vince Vaughn. There's an APP out for Vince Vaughn. We haven't seen it. Then, he did Night at the Museum 3. He consciously directed 3 Night at the Museum movies. And then he did Deadpool, the most recently movie, in the Adam Project with Ryan Gosling, or the Free Guy or Ryan Gosling, Ryan Reynolds, excuse me. So Sean Levy is a below average director. The only reason why Deadpool and Wolverine made that much money is because people were dying to see these two people together in a film, and then when you saw them together in a film, you want your money back. It could be Hugh Jackman factor, but whatever. This is a Hugh Jackman video. So Sean Levy, the biggest claim to fame that I have from Sean Levy is that he was associated as a director with Stranger Things, and Stranger Things 5, the last season's coming out now. So I'll give him his kudos to that. But as a director, I don't know, man. I see C-level work here, so that's Sean Levy. Take that as you will. Then Ryan Gosling. Ryan Gosling. Before we get deeper into it, Ryan Gosling has always been a good-looking B-ish actor. He's not an A-lister. He's not a C-lister. He's a B-ish. He's a mid guy. His most critically acclaimed film, in terms of not critically acclaimed, in terms of the most successful film he's ever done, is Barbie. But it wasn't because of him. It wasn't. People didn't say I wanted to see Ken. It was Barbie. People went to go see Barbie. Generations of girls love Barbie, so they went to go see it. He was you know what it was? He was a supporting character to the team, but he wasn't the main guy. And if you look at his films, real quickly for Ryan Gosling, Remember the Titans. Wow, great film. He was a minor character. He wasn't the main guy there. That should be a trend going forward, Ryan Gosling. 2004, The Notebook.
This guy came prepared today. Oh my God!
No, listen again. I just think that he's the Henry Cavill-ish of the romantic world. Good-looking guy, mid-actor. The Notebook. I like The Notebook. Most people like The Notebook. It's a great story. I'll give him his credit there. Blue Valentine. It's a very, very dramatic romantic movie with him and Heath Ledger's, I don't say baby mama, but his partner at the time, Michelle Williams, about a relationship going back and forth, divorce and all that stuff. Crazy, stupid love. Never got into it. I think Steve, don't get me wrong, I never got into it, but I know a lot of people like the film, so I'm going to give him his credit.
I was like, don't go there.
No, I'm not going to go there. I'm being really honest here. Steve Carell, good cast. I just never got into it, but give him his kudos there. They did this Gangster Squad a year later with Emma Stone, because they did like 3 films in a row. I don't know anybody saw Gangster Squad. Come on, let's be real. La La Land. I like the film, and I give him his credit. But Emma Stone was better than him. Once again, Ryan Gosling is B to A. Blade Runner 2049, he was Officer K. Not even a real name. Not even a John, not even a Steve. Officer K was his name. That movie, let me see, it was historically known for, it came out in 2017. The budget was 276 mil, and the budget was 150 to 185, and it made 276 mil overall. Not domestically, not internationally, total. Blade Runner, the original, while it wasn't a box office success, it was critically acclaimed, and it was everybody and their mother, scientifically wise, copied the aesthetics of Blade Runner. Now, another professor going to go deeper into Blade Runner for about 2 seconds, which he shouldn't, whatever. So the point is, I think you got a mid guy director and you got a B guy actor. So you're going to get a mediocre film. So little context here. 3 Star Wars films are in production. This one next year comes out, which is already finished filming, the Mandalorian and Grogu film. That one is interesting. That one, everybody, because it's going to tie in Disney Plus with the cinematic universes. That's cool. And then you have the Rey one that is 15 years after episode 9. And Rey was probably one of historically the worst characters in the history of Star Wars. So I don't know if a lot of people are dying to go see Rey. So as it pertains to Ryan Gosling, I think that the level should be all right. That's all right, but it's not. Oh my God, Ryan Gosling in Star Wars.
Professor.
Okay, so let's start. Sean Levy, am I a fan of his? No, but but you got to give credit where credit's due. He made three really impactful movies, and we need to talk about all 3. First is Free Guy. So when you're looking at Free Guy is a movie that should not have worked at all. But I would challenge anyone to go watch that movie and try not to like it. It is a very hard movie not to like. And it's also a movie that you can very happily rewatch. Night at the Museum is a family favorite movie. It's the kind of movie that a family can watch over and over and over again. The perfect movie for streaming. And that is exactly why Sean Levy got this job. Sean Levy makes movies that can be rewatched. He does a pretty good job at it. The tone's not too heavy, not too light. And if you look at his movies carefully, he's very wise with how he uses CGI. Case in point, Deadpool and Wolverine. When you're looking at all the last Marvel movies, ask yourself a question. How good has the CGI been? Or better yet, how bad has it been? And you realize that the reason why is because Marvel has a habit of changing their plans for movies midstream. But for Deadpool and Wolverine, for some odd reason, the CGI in that movie worked. And a lot of that credit has to go to the actual director. So when you're looking at his actual directorial skills, they're pretty good. And when you're looking at the product that he comes out with, it's pretty good. When you're looking at Deadpool and Wolverine, the reason why it didn't work is because it was overly bloated. Why? Because it's a Marvel film. They're all overly bloated now. So as much as I might want to blame him for that, the fact of the matter is he's following the exact same trend that Marvel's been doing for the last 2, 3, 4 years of movies with too much going on. And arguably, of the last slate of terrible movies, his isn't even the worst. There are so many that are so much worse from directors that we had higher expectations from. So I think he deserves a bit of a pass there, even though Deadpool and Wolverine is a horrible movie and I don't recommend it for anyone.
He was a co-writer in the movie.
Everyone was a co-writer in that movie. That movie had like 10 co-writers. Everybody wrote that movie.
When you say that he doesn't deserve that much of a blame, he does.
Everybody knows it's a Ryan Reynolds movie. You get what you're paying for. Ryan Reynolds deserves the blame for that movie, plus Kevin Feige. They're the two bosses. The bosses always get the blame. I follow that rule forever, and I always will. So there's that piece.
That's fair.
Now, in defense of Ryan Gosling, La La Land. Now, the kid has done his research. What was the budget for La La Land, kid?
I'll tell you right now, because it's hard to find a good film for him. So you gotta give me a second.
I can tell you, it was $30 million. That was a low budget film,
and it made $500 million.
And it made $500 million, kid. That's a big boss move, kid.
Would you say he was the reason the movie made $500 million?
He's a big part of it, and the reason why is because he has that thing that women like. that mysterious but approachable thing. He has mastered that formula. The reason why he's the ideal person for Star Wars, he is the evolution of the Adam Driver Kylo Ren idea. Who almost saved that sequel trilogy? Adam Driver almost did. If you put Ryan Gosling is literally the exact same formula. Kind of dark, kind of mysterious, kind of approachable. Ladies like him. And at the end of the day, that will drive women to go watch Star Wars at the same time as their boyfriends do, which is ultimately what these studios need to happen. Because the problem with Star Wars has always been that it skews way too much towards men, and in particular, a certain kind of man. And for Star Wars to survive, it has to evolve into something different that absorbs values from different genders, different races, and different cultures, whether people like it or not. Otherwise, it's not going to grow and it's going to end. So it is what it is. And that's why Ryan Gosling ultimately likely is the best choice. And if you don't want Ryan Gosling, you've got to think about who the alternatives would be. The Shang-Chi guy, would he do a better job? No. Glenn Powell, would he do a better job? Probably not, actually. When you think about it, even though it's currently his, you want that Timothy Chalamet guy, you want him in there as a Jedi? That's not going to work. He's so skinny. He's the right guy. He's the right age. He looks like he's in his late 40s, 50s now. You could see him
mid-40s.
Yeah, you could see him having trained as a Jedi for quite some time. It works. So for a franchise that is currently on its last legs, because let's be honest, it's the right move. And it's better than the move Marvel made by bringing back Robert Downey Jr. It's nowhere near as desperate. So to me, I applaud it.
All right, so I have a little edit on my part. So I'm gonna give you Free Guy and Adam Project for Sean Levy because
I forgot about Adam Project. I forgot about that one. Thank you.
I'm gonna give you those two because it was my fault. I meant to say Fall Guy, not Free Guy.
Okay.
Fall Guy by Ryan Gosling was a box office bomb that came out last year, and it was literally after Barbie, and so that plays to my argument that Barbie was a $1 billion film. So you would think that the momentum was Ryan Gosling was in Barbie, $1 billion film, and then his next film, which is Fall Guy, that's the one that I say is trash. My bad. So it wasn't Free Guy. The other one was good.
Kill your argument right here.
How many? What's the argument? It bombed.
Watch this. How many bad Star Wars movies have there been? Exactly.
No, hold on. But you can't say that when that's the best franchise in the history of cinema.
Correct.
You're not always going to hit 100.
Correct.
Ryan Gosling doesn't hit 100 ever.
But what I'm saying is he doesn't need to, because at the end of the day, the brand brings the people anyways. Right?
That's exactly what I think is going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's going to be the brand of Star Wars. Is the brand of Star Wars being put out there? You're putting a face that is recognizable by everyone, Ryan Gosling, and you're going to create this story to put it out there. You're going to have girlfriends coming in watching this film. It's going to sell. It really is.
Yep.
I personally don't think that Ryan Gosling fits into that Star Wars, but it might be kind of like you said, maybe just because we're used to that more leaning more masculine audience in that case. But it kind of goes also away from what is the lore of Star Wars. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. The storyline has to be the right storyline for this to work.
Well, TK, the article did say that this is a standalone. So this is an Elseworld. This is not connecting to the Skywalker thing, which could be a good thing. And to the professor's point, and to your point, if 7, 8, 9 all made $1 billion and only one film was good, and they all made $1 billion because the brand sells, then this film and Grogu and whatever damn Star Wars film comes out, theoretically, with the exception of probably the Solo one, every one of them, we have to look it up whether Rogue One did. I don't think it did, but it came close. With the exception of Rogue One, I think, and Solo, actual Star Wars film, because those were, remember, they were a Star Wars story. These Star Wars, the actual whatever it is, chapter whatever, all hit $1 billion, to your point. So the logo is going to sell. And I know it looks like I'm being hard on Ryan Gosling. I just think that here's the thing. What do we know from the film? It's a standalone film. It's not going to be connected to the Star Wars, the Skywalker saga, which I think is a good thing because I think the 7, 8, 9 destroyed the Skywalker saga, and I think that to Jay's point, 40-something-year-old Ryan Gosling and the way that Levy does his films, which again I just gave him credit for the last 2 Ryan Gosling films, it's going to be an adventure, feel good, should be what we feel about Star Wars. So we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt. That's why I think it's going to be it's a B. If you got 2 B guys, it's going to be a B film. It's not going to be trash and it's not going to be amazing. But if it is amazing, then it's better for us because right now Star Wars, it's taking so much L's that DC's looking good. That's how bad Star Wars is taking L's.
No,
here we go, right on schedule.
Not to that level.
You were doing so well. You were doing so well.
James Gunn, save us.
The difference is that us right now, when it comes to the Star Wars brand, we're kind of like, it's Star Wars. When it comes to the DC films and stuff like that, we're running away from it. We don't want to see it. We scroll past it real quickly.
Anyway.
But so even if Ryan Gosling makes this into a B film, we then have to ask ourselves, how many B Star Wars films have there been? And when you look all the way back, the last Star Wars film that you would give a B to, it's probably Revenge of the Sith, maybe if you're being generous. But other than that, you wouldn't give any.
Rogue One. But what do we give Rogue One?
A.
Correct. I agree.
It's an A.
Yeah, like that's the last A, by the way.
And absolutely, anyone that criticizes Rogue One can't be taken seriously.
Oh no, that's a beautiful. Yeah. Solo trash, right? Can we agree? Solo's trash.
Turned it off. Couldn't tell you.
Correct. The minute he said, "What's your last name?" I don't have a last name.
Never made it that far.
I'm done. Episode 7 was a disgrace, but most people give it like a B-ish. I don't go that far.
Which one is 7 again?
7 is A New Hope Awakens. They literally copied and paste.
C plus.
There you go. Yeah, even that's too much for me. A C- for me. Anyways, Last Jedi, F.
No, disagree.
What? Oh,
allow me to explain. When you're looking at The Last Jedi, the problem with it is that it stood alone by itself. Now, if that would have had an actual sequel, something else after it to build off the new ideas that were being presented, you might have ended up with something okay. But the problem is that you got something that referenced the first movie, which they already threw away. So now the whole thing feels disjointed. Killing Luke in the end, I'm not a fan of the idea, but at the end, he's a Jedi. It doesn't matter whether he's alive or dead or how he dies. He's still gonna appear in the next movie, whatever. No.
You see, now you do revisionist history kind of thing. It does matter how he died because a lot of people were pissed. A lot of people were mad at the fact that he threw away the essence of the Jedi Temple and the Jedi books. He threw away the lightsaber because it was a joke. No.
Okay.
They wrote Luke.
Yeah, I remember, like this is lore of Star Wars. This is lore of Star Wars. This is like in comparison of Undertaker losing his streak at WrestleMania to Brock Lesnar.
Watch this. Allow me to sell you on the idea. When you're a kid and you find out that Obi-Wan Kenobi is hiding on Tatooine and Yoda's hiding on Dagobah, the first question you ask is why? Then there's a part of you that judges them for it, where you stop and you say, so the Jedis gave up? How are you a hero and you gave up? You then watch the prequels, and part of what they explain to you is the reason why they gave up is because ultimately the people chose evil. It's the people's choice. Good can't defeat the people's choice. Part of where The Force Awakens messed up is that they didn't properly explain the backstory behind the First Order and why it's called the First Order. Are you all familiar with where the First Order comes from?
Yeah.
How it actually comes from the Republic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the point is that even after all that Luke did, killing the Emperor, killing his father, all of that, it just went back to the way it was. Of course he quits. And that's the point of the.
That's bad writing. That's bad writing. That's bad writing. The fact that there was no backstory, the fact that when we first saw Finn in the trailer of episode 7, everybody and their mother was excited to see that when he takes off his stormtrooper and they're like, oh, what is this? This is awesome. we have to acknowledge the truth. And the elephant in the room is two things: you copy and paste it. And we're not dumb. You insulted Star Wars fans. And the second thing is, Jay, you're being disingenuous here. Episode 7 was trash. The minute Rey did her stupid powers, that ended the movie. Let's be real. The minute she did Rosetta Stone, the Force, it insulted 30 years of training that we've known in Star Wars. Come on.
I 1000% agree with you. I'm not trying to justify 7. I'm talking about 8.
So you couldn't because 7 was so bad.
But here's the thing. Remember that when episode 8 was written, all that guy got was an outline and the backstory. He didn't get to watch the actual movie. So when he's writing his movie, he knows
about Ryan Johnson?
Yes.
Okay.
He knows the background behind why the universe goes that way. And that's ultimately why he makes those decisions. And when you're looking at it, especially looking at the context of today and the way the government's going and all of that, the reality of it is that people who are on one side are all saying the same thing. I give up. I quit. It's a reflection of what actually happens and how the world actually works. So when you're looking at The Last Jedi from that context, it does make sense. The problem is the movie before it does a poor job laying the foundation for it that the two pieces don't match. So for episode 8 to work, it needed another movie after it to lay out that foundation that was missing. But because that didn't happen, now you have 3 movies that are trash rather than just one. So I'm saying where Lucasfilm messed up, so they didn't double down on the idea, they abandoned it. And by abandoning it, they made it even worse. So now to your point, now when you watch it, you're like, oh my God, this is completely stupid. When the reality of it is they could have fixed it, but they chose not to. Instead, they brought back the Emperor and didn't explain that either.
And they brought back our favorite guy from episode 7, J.J. Abrams, who should be eradicated from making movies. Here's the one thing that I agree with 90% of what you're saying, but here's the one thing I just can't agree with the 10%. And the 10% is, on paper, you're right. You're theoretically like Sheldon, right? You're theoretical physics. You're right on the theoretical aspect, but there's also the practical part, right? On paper, Ryan, I agree. Ryan Johnson got the short end of the stick. Kathleen Kennedy destroyed the Star Wars saga. I 100% agree with that. What I'm saying, that Ryan Johnson is not absolved of liability because the execution of episode 8 was trash. On paper, you're right, Jay. Oh man, it's a lot of political theories and themes and all this stuff. The execution, you can't watch that movie, man. It's so bad. And again, Ryan Johnson, you're right. I think J.J. Abrams got a hell of a lot easier path in 7 than he did in 8. 100% agree with you. I just think that when you watch 8, what Leia does, I'll never get over that. She's a Kryptonian. I'll never get over what Luke does. The writing, you can't get. In other words, Ryan Johnson, you know what it is? Hey, Ryan, we're going to give you 40% of free pass. That 60%, though, you directed it, bro. You said that was a good.
Well, but hold on. So remember, I don't know if you remember this, but remember how originally Force Awakens was supposed to just have Rey, Finn, and who's the third character they created? And Poe, right?
Oh.
But episode 8 wasn't supposed to have any of the 3. Like,
you can tell.
Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah.
What happened is at the last minute, he had to write them into the story. And that's why the whole thing's disjointed. It's literally studio interference. So when you're looking at that movie again, ask yourself a question. What if we would have either taken these characters out or recombined certain storylines together? Would you get a better movie? Almost think of it like the Snyder Cut idea. If you actually allowed the director to tell this, sorry, I know it's probably triggering. If you actually allowed the director to tell the story that he actually intended to tell, would it have been as bad? And I really don't think so, because when you're looking at the concepts of it and the execution of the concepts that he wanted, they're not bad ideas.
Let me piggyback. You piggyback on that because that's valid to your point. Episode 9, I don't know if you guys know, Colin, I forgot his last name with the T, the director. Episode 9, that guy. Yeah, episode 9. I don't know if you guys knew. They leaked when episode 8 came out. They leaked Coruscant pictures of episode 9, and episode 9 was going to be a totally different story than what we got in Rise of Skywalker. And it was going to be a darker story about the Knights of Ren and Coruscant and all that stuff. And what you got was utter trash. It was one of the worst Star Wars movies in history. So to your point, he left the project. And I think studio interference is a huge factor. If we want to do a pie chart, it has to be like the majority of it, because obviously it messed everything up. For me, I would never hire J.J. Abrams for whatever. That's just me. But to your point, I just think with episode 8, here's the problem. And a lot of revisionist history. I remember watching episode 7, mad. And I shouldn't be mad because I love Star Wars. I love Star Wars. And I was mad at the movie. I was like, Kylo Ren is a petulant child. He's throwing temper tantrums.
Yes.
Like, who's writing this? Poe just comes out of nowhere and right coincidentally just saves the day. And when he has when Finn is fighting the stormtroopers, there's no backstory to the First Order. Rey just gets her powers. Again, it was bad. But what happened? But hold on, Jip. But what happened in 2014? The Star Wars fans were eating it up. They're eating the slop. And there was a few rebels out there saying, no, this movie's not that good. The problem was when you finish episode 8, and Ryan Johnson, I get it. He doesn't get full of blame, but he gets some of the blame. But unfortunately, people caught up to the idea that there was no cohesive story. To your point, there was nothing connecting it. And so by the time it ended, you're like, oh, that's a pretty cool concept towards the end with the kid and the future and all that stuff. But because which meant nothing. But the fact that we went through all the the plot of the film is the ships were right there next to each other for an hour and a half, and you couldn't reach them. The First Order couldn't reach them with all the technology, and the girl had the purple hair girl had to sacrifice herself to show Poe some character development that was irrelevant in episode 9, and that was actually written into the story. That was like, oh, we can't catch them, and they're right there. You're like, who wrote this? So again,
don't forget they also had the escape pod that they escaped out.
and then Finn and the girl, Rose, I think her name was. They went to some casino.
Yes.
Star Wars. Like, what is going on here?
Because again, when you're looking at Star Wars, so to go full nerd, when you're a kid and you watch Return of the Jedi, one of the questions you likely ask yourself is, who are all of those people behind the Emperor and why are they there? One of the prevailing themes in Star Wars that at the end of the day, the corporations always win, that the corporations essentially are funding both sides of the conflict. And Star Wars has always been about that. It's just that, again, because of the backstory, they never quite flesh it out. And the casino planet reintroduces that idea. And that's another one of those ideas where if they would have properly followed up on it in the sequel movie, it all would have worked out. And that's also why I think for a long time they had the idea of giving Ryan Johnson his own trilogy. Because when you're looking at his ideas are Star Wars. The problem is they're just not Kathleen Kennedy. That's the issue. And when you're going back to The Force Awakens, when you're looking at it in hindsight, something else to remember is that none of those characters were ever intended to come back. That's why none of it was explained. So of course you can have Kylo Ren be whatever if you're not planning on putting him in a sequel. Of course you can have Rey be a super Jedi god if you're not planning on ever using her again. But once you actually go back and you bring them all back, then the whole thing falls apart because there's no solid plan for any of them. That's why he didn't answer the questions. He didn't have any answers. He said someone will figure it out one day.
And he was also probably, to your point, Jay, he was also probably limited to the degree of like, you could film the movie, you could go here, you could go there, but then there's a next one, right? There's an episode 9, and at that time, Colin was already doing the pre-production on that film. And he was probably limited to the degree of like, you could only go to this line story-wise. You can't cross it. And to your point, here you go, man. Here's a couple of sheets. Do a whole film on a couple of sheets. So again, that's the studio and Kathleen Kennedy's fault for not putting those 3 dudes in a because remember when they announced J.J. Abrams while he was filming, they announced Ryan Johnson, and when Ryan Johnson was filming, they announced Colin for episode 9. I would have put all 3. I would have put all 3 of them in a damn room and be like, "Hey, what's the story? Let's go." As opposed to, because you could tell when you rewatch it, which I never will. There's no story. They don't go anywhere. It doesn't connect. So going back to this, the fact that it's not part of that, it's a huge thing. It's a positive for this film.
And we all know if it does well, it's going to be a sequel. It is what it is.
Yeah. Too much money.
Exactly.
Dangerous to go alone.
Exactly.
Take this.
All right, this ran a little longer than I expected, so we'll call it for here. But thank you for tuning in, whether you are a Jedi, time traveler, joining the universe over here. Keep your fandom alive and your warp drive engaged. Until next time, fellow nerds, this was Nerd Breaking.